Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
Okay, so we're going to start with moonology.
This is so good because my
yes.
moon in Pisces is coming up on a new moon this weekend. So
Oh, it
it's
is?
like double whammy of power for me to manifest.
Okay.
I'm excited. So
I'm
let's see what it
excited too.
says.
Okay. I knocked on it 3 times because that's what you told me to do.
Great. Yep.
Okay. Have you seen the lady that just takes the cards and like shuffles them and then like one will pop out and that's the one you need?
No, but I've seen other people kind of do that. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, yes, I want to do that, but I'm always too much of a perfectionist, I think.
Yeah.
We'll just do it this way.
Yeah, there's this channel on YouTube called The Autistic Mystic.
Nuh-uh.
And I love watching him. Like, it's
Oh
fascinating.
my gosh.
You'll have to
That'd be
check him out.
awesome.
He
I
does
will.
like it by your sign, your sun sign, like he'll be like, okay.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so we got, it's probably backwards. Oh, shoot. It
Your
thinks the world is the background on
your
Zoom.
dreams need a personal what is it? Practical
Your
plan.
dreams need a practical plan.
Oh,
So full moon
interesting.
and Taurus. Sometimes you need to weave a bit of magic and sometimes you need to be practical and sometimes you need to find a combination of the two. This
Mm,
card suggests that this is where you are now. You need to use the laws of attraction, that's what we're talking about today,
yep.
to draw in what you want by imagining it, expecting it, and welcoming it. But you need to balance that with taking down to earth steps towards your goals.
Mm,
This isn't about wishing on the moon and hoping for the best. It's about making something like a list of bullet points about how to achieve your dreams. If you're asking about money, this card heralds a change of financial fortunes depending on both your past actions and what you're expecting and therefore attracting. So it says you're supposed to write down 10 things that you know are wonderful about you. I've
oh,
never
cool.
I've never had one of these cards say that.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So the teaching, the
awesome.
full moon in Taurus is a time to get back to earth, to get grounded, to work through any negative feelings you've been dealing with, and to find a balance between being passionate and being overly intense. Money
Mm.
issues may come to a head at this time of full moon in Taurus, but you can take this card as a sign to pay more attention to your cash flow no matter when you draw it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
baby.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
cool.
I'm glad you bought. When did you get those?
Probably TJ Maxx.
Oh, yeah. I love TJ Maxx.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh. Have you ever watched Leanne? What's her name? I think it's Leanne. It's on Netflix. She's a comedian and she's like in her 50s.
Uh-uh.
You got to watch it. She talks about all the stuff about like she's just like our age, but she has funny things in there. She's like, being a stay-at-home mom, or what do you do with your time? She's like, I bought so much pink Himalayan salt at TJ Maxx. Like, what else do I do? And oh my gosh, she's funny. You'll have to catch her.
Have you
She's funny.
heard about the pooping at TJ Maxx?
No.
Like it's a thing. Like you get there and people always have to, and I honestly have that. And I was like, I told my friend, I was like, somebody just blew my mind. And anyway, so every time I go there, she's like, so? And I'm like, usually 8 times out of 10. It's so weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if people get like excited by the good deals, if they just feel like it's
Right.
at home. They just had theories. They didn't have any like good reasons for why people feel that way, but yeah,
Oh,
interesting.
funny. Now you're gonna get it in me.
Sorry.
It's not gonna do that. Because I'm telling you.
Get that out of
Yeah.
your subconscious.
Yeah, get that out. Get that out. Because I'm telling you, I love at home, my bidets. Like, I'm telling you, it's so nice. So if I have to go to the bathroom in public, I just walk around like I don't feel good. Like, I hate it. Because I'm like, this is a hot mess. Or at home, like if you go number 2, by the time I wipe, there's nothing there. Like,
Wow.
so nice.
That is so nice.
It's nice. Anyway,
Dude, I wonder if
EMI.
because they're clean, right? So like wouldn't it make sense that businesses might go that way someday? I don't know.
Well, I know, right? Use way less toilet paper. Like it's like,
Less mess, less toilet
yes,
paper all over the floor.
yes, yes. It's so nice. It's so nice. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then like those one big old toilets, they like can take your temperature, they can look and check your blood sugar. Like I'm like,
What?
yeah, I'm like,
Your
they
blood
need to,
sugar.
yeah, I'm like, they need to have those. We need to have those more
Yeah, we
often.
do. When I went to Germany, they had ones that like self-cleaned. So like the toilet seat would rotate back around.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah,
could have
that's
stayed in there forever. I was just so fascinated by it.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally
Okay, thanks for
cool.
talking about bathrooms.
Yeah,
I like a good,
you know.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I
Awesome.
promised you last time that we
Yeah.
would talk about that lady that I researched about manifestation.
Yeah.
So her name, and it just left me, is Florence Scoville Shinn, Shinn. Have you heard of her?
Uh-uh.
No? So there was a new thought that came up. She was a new thought teacher in like the
Ooh,
20s. So the book was written in 1925. So like 199 years ago. It's
wow.
crazy. And some of the stuff she said, I was thinking, I feel like are so new to
Yeah.
me, but they've existed obviously for a long time and probably even before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she taught the power of the word is kind
Mm.
of what she did. And so people would come to her and ask for affirmations.
Mm.
And she would like put the affirmation out, and then I guess the people would take it back and go and say it themselves. And the book is really short. It's 98 pages, and you can find it. People on YouTube read it. You can find like just on like a Google page. So
Mm-hmm.
and you can buy it too. But it's separated into different laws. So
Mm.
she has like the law of prosperity. Oh, the name of the book though is The Game of Life and How to Play It.
Mm. Okay.
And so it's separated into sections of law of prosperity, power of the word, the law of non-resistance, law of karma, law of forgiveness, casting the burden, love, intuition and guidance, perfect self-expression or
Mm.
divine design. And then at the very end, she has affirmations that and denials. That's what she calls
Mm.
it. So for 98 pages, she packs a lot in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing I wanted to kind of highlight is just the idea of the law of non-resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is my issue. Always thinking like, oh yeah, I want this great thing to happen, but it probably can't. Or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I'm good enough for it. And I think that's for me, that's my biggest hurdle. I think when it comes to manifestation is just thinking maybe I don't deserve it, or just that subconscious mind just keeps going.
Yeah.
And so she made a couple points. She said that nothing on earth can resist a non-resistant person. I thought that was so
Mhm.
fascinating. And so she kind of
Nothing.
illustrated, I guess the Chinese say that the water is the most powerful element because it's completely non-resistant. Like when it hits a rock, it just wears it away until it goes away.
Mm.
Like nothing stops it.
That gives me chills. That gives me
Yeah.
chills. That's my
You
water.
love water.
I'm a water sign. Yeah, I got extra. I have a water trine. Like I have a
Oh my
lot of
gosh.
water in my chart. So water's huge for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you kind of embody some of this in some ways. Like, when I talk to you, it's like, well, why can't that happen? Of course that can happen. Like you're like, why wouldn't it? So I love that about you.
You're
And
telling me there's a chance.
that's right.
Like we talked about last time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
Yep.
Um, and she talks a little bit about like people don't want to be a doormat. So like
Mm.
they want to be non-resistant. So they want to just accept everything as it comes in, but they're like, I don't want to be a doormat. And
Yeah.
this was really magical to me. She said that you need to, sorry, let me make sure I say this right. You're not a doormat if you use non-resistance with wisdom.
Mm.
So
Right.
if you're mindful about accepting something that comes in, like,
Mm-hmm.
so for example, something that might be termed bad comes
Mm-hmm.
in, recognizing what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and even like she even ends up calling them blessings
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
saying like, thank you for this blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's not being a doormat. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. I think so too, because I think sometimes we like it's like, I don't want to ask for anything, just whatever I get is good enough, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of a doormatty. But with that wisdom, it's like, no, I'm going to choose what I want and be, proactive in what I want. And
Right.
that's okay too. Both of
Yeah.
those things I
Uh,
think are huge.
Yeah, I love that. And then there was one, oh, and one other thing. So that's kind of the law of non-resistance.
Hmm.
And then one other thing she talked about was how everything that happens to us is recorded in our subconscious.
Mm.
And so then our subconscious just keeps playing that over and over like a record. And she
Hmm.
talked about, like, in the olden days, or even a cassette tape, right? Everything was just recorded.
Right.
And then our subconscious just plays that as like a truth, even
Hmm.
though it's
Hmm.
not really a truth. Like, for example, every time I do something bad, I'm going to get in trouble. Or,
Right.
well, and that's not really necessarily true.
Right. Right.
And so this is what her affirmation was. And I love it. I think all of us should just close
Hmm.
our eyes and say this out loud,
Let's do it.
or like in our minds. So speak these words aloud with power and conviction. She says, I now smash and demolish by my spoken word every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They shall return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make my perfect records through Christ within, the
Hmm.
records of health, wealth, love, and perfect expression. And I
Hmm.
forgot to mention she was very religious. So I think
Hmm.
depending on wherever you sit on that, you can say universe,
Right.
creative, or
Right.
wellness. But I love that. I was like,
I love it.
go away, you're a dust
Yeah.
heap.
She when you say that she's about the spoken word, I think that's really interesting. It reminds me of, did you ever see that show? It was a Jodie Foster movie called Contact. It was like
Yes, a
years
long time
ago.
ago.
Okay, so the premise of that, remember, was that as soon as we started making airwaves or radio waves, that the sound just keeps going. It never stops. The
Okay.
sound waves just they just go and never stop. And so those were amplified sound waves. And so, what they get this, they make contact with some kind of, extraterrestrial beings or whatever. And what they ping back is this thing about Hitler. And they were like, what? But it was the first time that we beamed radio waves out. I don't know
Hmm.
what exactly, but I think that's the spoken word. So it's like, when you say that, it does sound waves. The sound waves, the like actual wave might get smaller and smaller, but it never goes away. It never turns into nothing. And so
Hmm.
you think about that you're really telling the entire universe forever and ever, what you want in the spoken word. So I
Oh
think, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it's
Uh-huh.
literally traveling through the universe. It's like literal, not just an idea, So when you're like, I'm speaking to the universe, that's what you're saying. It's not about
Yeah.
a being necessarily. It's about you using your voice, you using your own voice, your own frequency to cut through the universe to create a path.
Wow. And then it just keeps going. Like you can't stop it.
Right. You can't stop it, so for good or bad, right? So for good or bad,
Yeah, that's true. So
for
yeah,
good
I
or
think we
bad.
do have to be careful with those things that we say. Like they were talking about parents, they say like children are so innocent, so how do they get ill?
Mm.
If people say it's all in
Right.
our thoughts or whatever.
Right, right, right.
And they said, well, children are really susceptible to the thoughts of their parents
True,
because they were once a part of them.
true, true.
And how someone said, well, has your kid had measles? And she said, well, he hasn't had measles yet.
Mm.
And said that puts in the universe that you want them to have measles.
Right.
And how interesting that that power of that word that
Hmm.
keeps going. It's going to be
Yeah.
answered.
Yep, yep. Right, right, right. Yeah, that's something I even still need to work on, non-resistance towards, because sometimes I want to vent. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Sometimes I want to vent, and so, sometimes I've questioned myself about that, because it's like, I need to get this out, but I'm not proclaiming it. But I like how, I mean, that's where I think maybe the wisdom comes in, is it's like, okay, right now you can just speak that. Right now I'm expecting what I'm going to say to move in the universe and create, and you just become even
Hmm.
more intentional about what you're trying to say, like when you are creating versus, okay, right now I need to just vent for a few minutes or something like that.
Yes. Right. But also venting can say, I mean, I think proclaiming,
Yeah.
for example, we have friends that say like, I'm so fat. I'm just fat all the time.
Right.
Then instead of saying, gosh, I just don't feel so good about my body right now. I think
Right.
that's really different. And you kind of using your wisdom to say like, I'm feeling this way. It's totally legitimate to feel that way,
Right.
but not making yourself a certain way set in
Mhm.
stone.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah, I think so too. I think those, and a lot of those are the unconscious. They're done
Mhm.
unconsciously,
Right.
sometimes. And that's kind of the hardest part, is being able to catch it when that comes up, be like, oh, that's
Yes.
coming up. Like that's a thing, because it's not necessarily in a sentence form all the time,
Yeah.
but
I
these
love that. And they talked about how, I don't know if it was her talking or who she was talking about, but that she used to baptize little children.
oh
And
wow.
now she baptizes events. So
Oh
something will
wow.
happen and she'll be like, okay, I baptized this event that I didn't like to be for my good and to be, it
Wow.
was really cool. I don't have the exact words, but
Yeah.
yeah, she just like baptize events to say like, I baptize this phone call to be one that will bring me
Wow.
peace or whatever.
Back to the water, back
Oh
to the
yeah, that's
water.
true.
That's
Non-resistant.
yeah, she's using that element, she's wanting to connect with that element. That's fascinating. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
You were going to share some manifesting thought leaders or
Some ideas. Yeah, I've got a few
ideas?
clips to kind of send us in some directions to kind of talk about. All right. Okay, so this first one is Mel Robbins, just giving a little bit of advice about some lessons she learned.
There are 3 lessons I learned this year, which was one of the hardest years of my life. And I want to share them with you because I don't want you to have to experience the hardest year of your life to learn these lessons. These lessons are so important. Lesson number 1: your life is always trying to teach you something. And it's moments of friction and discomfort that have the greatest lessons of all. And if you don't learn it, life is just going to get louder and louder. And eventually it's going to hit you with a sledgehammer, because lessons repeat until you learn them. Lesson number 2 from the hardest year of my life: your excuses are bullshit. Behind every excuse is fear. That's all that's there. So you can disappear any excuse and you can address any fear with action. And number 3, change is not easy. Change is very hard. That's why so many of us struggle with it. But even though change isn't easy, it is always worth it and you're capable of it.
Okay, so the things that I thought was important about that video was, so number 1, life is always teaching you something. And I think it's just important to stop there, because, when we're trying to manifest something, I think that's what the resistance is it's like, we're like, no, I don't want this. I only want this. I only want this. And maybe we need to stop for a minute and say, is there a lesson here for me? Is there something that life is trying to teach me? And I don't think, I don't love the idea of, difficulties slamming you across the face. But I do know that I had like a really powerful experience where I was shown that creativity in this plane, on this dense earth, is achieved through struggle. So whether the seed breaking through, the soil, whether it's birthing a child, there is some kind of a struggle. And maybe that struggle is just manifesting. Maybe it's creating a vision board. You know what I mean? It's not like it has to take you out. The struggle has to take you out. But there is some kind of, it's something to just think about. So two things there is stop and say, wait, is this a lesson I need to learn? Is there something more I need? Is there healing I need? And then, to recognize that it's okay for struggle to be, it's not all struggle's not bad. Is it trying to teach me something? The second thing was no excuses. And she was very, very, I would say maybe blunt and harsh about, there's no excuses. You got to have action. But the reason why I kind of wanted to say this is because I think that's really a popular thing. Like, you got to act, you got to just do it, and I think going back to even the first one, it's like, if I can't act, or if that hits me and I'm like, I'm not good at that or whatever, that's the best clue, to say this is what my struggle is trying to teach me. And I think also the action is just, I think it's just there to say, especially when you're talking about manifesting, is like, we think it's just going to be easy, nothing, no big deal, no problem. I'm just going to say this and then it comes true. And a lot of people even, make it sound that way, that it's true, but there is some kind of action. And I think sometimes that action is healing. It's stopping and healing. And then the last thing was that change is hard, change is hard. And I think it's hard because we do have to go from point A to point B. And when you're manifesting, and that point can be very wide, because the point is really that non-resistance, or allowing that to be true in our lives. To me, that's the most difficult action. That's the biggest journey to make, right?
Yes.
And that kind of thing, though, happens every day. It's an everyday practice. It's not just about the thing that you're manifesting for. That's the wholeness library. It's like spend time every day feeling good, feeling good. Which brings me to the next video. This is Bob Proctor.
Most people don't use their imagination constructively. Most people use their imagination destructively. They imagine what they don't want.
And I know that's true for me. Like, it's like, well, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. And, that's, it's just something to stop and pause at the beginning and say, these are a couple things just to be aware of in manifesting. Is like, a lot of times it's like, I'm going to choose this because I don't want that. It's not that I really am choosing this. And so to spend some time, maybe even a little bit of struggle, like wrestling with that idea within ourselves. Like, am I really trying to prevent this, or do I really want that? And I thought that was interesting.
John, who was the guy that wrote The Shack?
William Paul Young.
William Paul Young. John. Okay. William Paul Young. What did he talk about, the stories we like make up in our mind?
Yeah, he calls it future tripping. Is that what you're talking about? He talks about future tripping.
Does that relate to what you're talking about, or is it different?
I think it relates because, yeah, you it's another word I've heard is like spiral. It's like, this is going to happen. Oh no, then that will happen, and then this will happen, and then that will happen. Or it's like we see somebody and we create a story in our mind about what's going on, in the situation. So it's again, it's like we're using our imagination destructively. Like we're not assuming the best, and we assume the best with other people, like we a little bit more than sometimes we do ourselves, or at least we tend to do one more than, one or the other. We either offload all of our issues onto other people, or we internalize all the issues onto ourselves, and that's but it's a similar struggle, but it's destructive imagination.
Yeah. I have a coworker who got mad at me for something that wasn't really, she shouldn't have gotten mad at me for. She had her own experience. And so I kept, as I was getting ready, I was thinking about experiences I was going to have and how it related to her. And then how if I did something weird, it would relate to that and she would get mad at me. And so I was like so scared to go to work because I was like, oh, she's going to be mad at me. But it was like this complete like spiral of a fake story. And I stopped myself and I said, well, that's bringing me no joy. I'm so sad. And that's probably not even going to happen. So I can just go back and say it and like erase that. Anyway, to me, that's using my imagination in a bad way. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so excited to have this experience. It's probably going to be great.
Yeah.
Or however I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, oh, this conversation that I'm going to have with someone is probably going to lead to my destruction.
Yes. And that's so true, because the other thing about that, when we do that, we all do that, is that underneath the layer of that is we don't trust that we'll be able to show up in the moment. So we're going to practice ahead of time almost. We're going to prepare. And so there's another layer of saying, you know what, if I'm in an awkward conversation, or I'm in an uncomfortable conversation, that's what part of the practice is that I'm going to practice enough away from the situation that I know to go down and bring the sensations into my heart, make myself planted, as firmly as I can, and just listen to what's happening, and answer, not, because a lot of times we're triggered and then we're like, blah, 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 instead of just like hearing what they have to say and then seeing if it's really true or not. If like, you always do this and you
Mhm.
always do this and you always do this. And our normal reaction is like, nah, well, instead of like listening, like, okay, she's upset, like like this is her, she's upset. I'm here, like, and trust in ourselves that we'll be able to withhold that conversation, to have our that we could trust ourselves in that moment, because it's not about having the right words to say. We a lot of times we want the comeback, it's like, oh, I should have said this, yeah, that, and you come up with it later. But it's so much more constructive if we just are ready in those situations when there's a difficult conversation. I'm going to go into my heart, I'm going to plant myself and ground myself, and then I'm going to see what happens. And I trust that if I do that, things are going to go better than if I have the right comeback, or if I have to defend myself, because the truth is we're all just doing the best we can. And we're going to, when we bring struggle, in order to create beautifully with struggle, then struggle's in the equation. And that means we're going to have struggle in other places, going back to like children getting sick. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Sometimes like when struggle is part of the equation, it has to be able to show up everywhere. It can't just only show up in this little place, so that's one of the things that we come up against. It's one of the things we come up against is struggle, and one of that is our own imagination. We struggle with that, but the practice isn't about not doing anything wrong, so we never have those experiences.
Yes.
That's just impossible. Like, we're going to bump up against each other,
Okay.
but it makes a huge difference if I just don't do the actual way that we always do it. We just always like get defensive, or like want to say, oh yeah, well, like and that exchange back and forth is just not about even what's going on most of the time. Like, I would say 90+% of the time, there's a lot more going on, so if I hold on to myself and pay attention to myself, then things come up, like, and what's coming at me, I imagine it's kind of going to the side of me. I'm just there to answer the questions being asked of me. If they're just telling you do this and you do that, okay, they're not asking me to answer. I'm not having to defend myself. It's just like, like, yeah, I guess that would be hard if you thought that, here's what was really going on, but like, it's just more a empowering way of having the conversation.
Well, and that's what I want to manifest. Instead of future tripping and thinking of all those things, I just want to manifest when a hard situation comes up, me just sitting there, like going down into my heart, feeling what the truth of the situation is, and then I think I could be done.
Yeah, I know, right? Doesn't it just feel like it's just done? And because the thing is the discomfort, we've all been in that situation. We've all felt those feelings. They really are just sensations in our body. And so if we can just, there's that sensation, I don't like this, even if you're just aware of the sensations, and instead of getting caught up in the story, because it's almost like the same thing as being caught up in our own head story, then we're caught up in this relationship story, or, and we get into trouble. I think, so I think you're right. I think it does fit very well, that future tripping, and it's very human, and we give grace, because it's like, that's just what we do. We practice for emergencies, but we start to say, when an emergency comes, I'm going to be okay. Like, I got it. I know what to do. I can, and if it doesn't work out and it's terrible, then I'm going to feel yucky, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to move on. I've done every other time. Every other
Clean
time
up on aisle 9. We've already done it.
Right. We've done it. So we've survived it. We can do it again. We can do it again. So yesterday I was thinking about, I don't know, I was just driving in the car, and sometimes I have the most random thoughts. And I was just thinking about our resources. And so I thought, at the beginning too, as we are talking about manifesting, I like, what if some of our manifesting is about the resources we need in order to create the thing we want? Maybe that's an idea. Maybe that's a place that we can start, so I was thinking, what are some resources? So of course, money is a resource. Our energy is a resource, our energy is a resource. Our, tools are a resource, like a hammer, or any of our processes, that any of those, anything you would consider a tool, that's a resource that we can turn to. Time is a resource. And so, it's like, okay, I want to manifest. We talked about like a car, so maybe I manifest maybe I like, okay, what do I need for that car? Maybe I need more time, maybe so I can make more money so that I can afford the car, kind of look toward those resources, almost like just kind of a step forward. I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing that popped in my head, just kind of playing with, these resources are available to us. And we begin to judge them as far as how much of the resource we have. But if we kind of just look at them as resources and even think about, what are some ways that we can get more of the resources. So then I started to think about like energy. So energy is one of our resources. How can we get more energy? From food, from rest. We can have natural products like crystals and oils, those can help our energy. So we can kind of use some of these resources in order to help us in our manifestation, or, money, money can be a credit, it can be currency, it can be an exchange, a trade, it can be time is an exchange, so just to kind of to open up these ideas, because I think, again, going back to what Bob Proctor says, it's like, if I'm going to manifest something, my mind automatically goes to what I don't have kind of at first, it's kind of like, oh, I don't have that. I don't have that. But if I kind of say, here's some resources, I do have that I can go to, and really recognize we actually have more than we think, kind of just deprogramming some of those beliefs that we have. And so I thought I wanted to just touch on that as we listen to a couple of more videos. Or so this next one is Gabby Bernstein, and she just had an interesting way of saying it. So
who is Gabby?
So Gabby Bernstein she's like her thing is called oh my gosh, I love it. I'm so jealous of her brand. It's called Spirit Junkie. She calls herself a spirit junkie. So a lot of the cards you'll buy, like, they're from Gabby Bernstein. She's written books. If you've heard the book, The Universe Has Your Back, she's very much about manifesting. And I just loved, she's very much about A Course in Miracles too. She kind of teaches a lot of Course in Miracles, and she's getting, I think she must be done now, but she's getting her certification in internal family systems. So it's kind of interesting. So she talks a lot with Richard Swartz. But this little clip that she created, I think is really fascinating. And so I'm going to play that right now.
Upset that your desire has not come into fruition yet, make another commitment today to release the outcome, to say it's this or something better. Stop praying for what you think you need and pray for the highest good.
And I just love that, because that kind of just opened it up for me, because it's like the idea of manifesting, sometimes we're like, think about it all day long. You just have to focus on it. And it's, it's like focus. But this, and at the same time, that idea of release, it's like, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you want, it's like those two conflict kind of at the same time, but I like her, just her little wording of this or something better, this or for my highest good, that just feels easy for me. That just feels a little more doable for me on my own, to be able to do that. So I loved that idea. And then this last one is from these different ideas are Jennifer Aniston. And here's hers.
To manifest whatever it is that you are wanting to manifest, you speak to it as though it's already happened. So thank you for this wonderful job that I have dreamed about and prayed for, and with this glorious crew and a joyful experience. Thank you for that.
And I just liked the way, first, a couple of things, it's like, that is probably rule number one of manifesting, is to speak it as if it's already happened. It's like, you become create a relationship with this thing, like as if you are talking to this thing that's real and has a life of its own, and you bring it here and now. And I think that's really important. And then the other thing I love that she just kind of added in there is that for some people, manifesting is going to look like a prayer. For some people, manifesting is going to look like a vision board. For some people, manifesting is going to look like, getting up and meditating. You know what I mean? Like it's all about bringing into our lives the things that we want. And I think that's just, we are creative beings. And I just think we are it's really helpful to kind of just allow ourselves to be creative, like our very cells create all the time. Like we are creative beings all the time. We are creating something out of nothing almost, or transforming things. Let's say we're taking energy into our body and transforming it into muscle. We are literally creators all the time. And just to kind of allow that to be so. And
I love that. Most of the manifestations or the affirmations, I guess, not manifestation, but most of the affirmations speak as if it already exists in us. Like there's one for health. She says, sorry, I'm going back to
I love
Miss Shin. We'll call her Miss Shin.
Great.
But like divine love floods my consciousness with health and every cell in my body is filled with light. So it's not even like the future.
Yes.
Is that what she said? Jennifer Aniston said, like, ask if it happens right now.
Yeah. Like it's true. Ask as if it's true. I am a courageous being, or I am driving my new car. I am driving my new car.
And I think about that story you told about Jim Carrey, about writing himself a check for $1 million, or probably more than that.
I think 10 million.
10 million?
Yeah.
And he was like, here it is. It happened.
Yeah.
It already happened. I think about that all the time.
Yeah. Yep. I keep several things in my wallet at all times that are, it's not necessarily a check, but I even created it when we started the Wholeness Network. I still keep it in my wallet. We created our own currency, and wrote it on there.
Oh.
And I keep it in there. I also keep, I created I call it like a heavenly, American Express, or like it's like a Universe Express. That's what it is. I think it is. And I just keep it in my wallet, and it's like, this is my endless, like, it's just about allowing myself, and it doesn't show up all the time, but it's just allowing myself to like go into those places where I think I have enough. I can do this. I am supported. There's a tool for me. I have this universal credit card I can use whenever I want. It's got an endless credit on it. There's no limit to me. I am my limit, like I am my own limit. That the universe doesn't need to have a limit because I do a good job on my own. So these are some experiences from people. And this first one, I wanted to really I think it was important to let this one, this person be heard, because I think it's true for many of us. So
The bearer of bad news for y'all, but manifestation is fake. It don't work, and that is not real. Life is actually about working your ass off, grinding day in, day out, no sleep.
So this was just from an anonymous person, but I think it's something to touch on, because I get what this guy's thinking, right? Like I get it. Like it feels like, obviously things haven't gone right for him. Obviously, there are some beliefs in there that because the part that I thought was really interesting is it's like, blood, sweat, and tears, up all night, and I think, that gives me some clues that there's some beliefs in there going on, and I let him have his beliefs. I'm open, I trust that things will show up for him, and the way that will, get that aha moment, and that will shift and that will change. But I just wanted to acknowledge that, some people, if you're struggling, if you're stressed, if your physical needs aren't being met at the rate that you need them to be, then, this is the kind of thing that you're going to feel. It's going to be difficult. If you're starving, you don't care about a new car. like you're going to a different state. We talked about that before, the things that get in the way in the last episode.
But
So I thought,
also, could we address the fact that he is using manifestation to manifest that nothing's happening?
right.
If you peel it down, you could say, like, actually, if you're gonna put this out there that everything takes really hard work, then yeah, it's going to.
And you are exactly right. And you have just manifested beautifully.
Yes,
You
you
know,
did.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Totally good point. Okay, so now a couple of positive ones. So this first one
Okay.
is Kayla.
So my cousin and I were scrolling on TikTok at midnight a couple nights ago, the huge, and we saw a video by this girl who basically said that she has been manifesting all these great things by saying this certain saying. So let me be the first to say I didn't believe in manifestation. I was just kind of like, whatever. But the past few weeks, I've kind of gotten into it. And so me and my cousin were like, let's try it. So we've been doing it for the past few days. And today I went into a gas station and the guy in front of me was cashing in lottery ticket. And so I was like, you know what? I just felt prompted to do it, right? And keep in mind, we've been saying this saying. So I just felt super prompted to do it. So I bought 2. I've never won anything before. I've never won a scratch off. I've literally never won anything before, okay? On both of them, I won money. Not big money. I didn't win the $1 billion lottery, whatever. But on each scratch off card, I won $100 on one and $1,000 on the other. And before I scratched them off, I said the saying. So let me put y'all on really quick. The saying is, I am lucky and I get everything that I want. I am lucky and I get everything that I want. We've been saying it for days and we've been having the best of luck. The trick behind it is you have to believe it. We believe it. I believed it. I believed when I was scratching off the cards that I was lucky. I was going to win money. You have to believe it. It's goofy. I know it sounds weird at first, but it's only weird if you make it weird. Say it, believe it with your chest, and go get you some luck.
Okay. So the couple of things that popped out to me that I think are important to talk about is that she used the word, I like that she was prompted. And I think that's important because that means, to me, prompted, that's where we're hitting authenticity. She's not making it up. She's not forcing the issue. She used the word, it was authentic to her. It was like, I think I'm going to do this. And so that automatically puts her in a different place where she's not striving out there to make it happen. She's going with what that prompting was. And I think that's something to touch on. The other thing that I thought was good about that story is, she said, I didn't make all the money that I never need to make again. She allowed the experience to manifest, and she was grateful for the outcome, regardless of what it was. She wasn't, that's kind of again, back to the non-resistance. It's not about, it has to be this way or it doesn't count. It was, and the more that we practice, getting a yes, the more we trust that we'll get a yes. Right.
Okay.
So there's an experiment that you can do. Everybody can do it. It's like, it's really powerful. So wake up in the morning one day, especially when you're going to be out on the road, and just say, I want to manifest yellow cars. And then just begin to count the yellow cars that you see. And what that does is it just kind of helps build that muscle of like getting a yes, or getting a like, oh my gosh, there's a lot. There's a lot. And whether we're just paying attention to it more or not, both of those things are manifestation to me. Whether we're creating the yellow cars or whether we're paying attention to them, both of them, we're still having the same experience, right? So if I'm just paying attention to all the money that's coming in and I'm like, there's a lot of money coming in, I'm going to feel like I have a lot of money. That's what we're looking for. Like we talked about before, we're looking for the feeling more than even the object. The object is less important than the feeling.
Okay.
So I really like that about her experience, that she was prompted and just, it was authentic. And then she allowed the yes to be a yes, she allowed it to say, yeah. Okay. This last one is Kathleen. And here's her story. Let's see.
Okay. Story time. I'm going to tell you my very first manifestation with money. So I decided I wanted to check this out. I wanted to play around with the idea that I could manifest a certain amount of money. So I decided I wanted $20,000. I wanted to manifest $20,000. I started focusing on that. And I had a thought. If I manifest $20,000, my bank account will have more because I always leave a little bit of money in my account. So I decided that I was going to visualize my bank account with $21,795. I wrote this out over and over again. I pictured it. I felt the feeling of what it would feel like to check my bank and to see that amount of money in there. And one day my husband called and he says, it looks like we have some stocks we can exercise. Do you think we should do that? I said, sure, thinking it would be a couple $100. Well, I checked my bank account about a week later and there was $21,795. No
So
joke.
I think the thing that's important about that is, I think this goes back to the beginning with Mel Robbins, is like, there's action. The action had been taken to buy the stocks. The action was done long ago. And that sometimes I think when we think of manifestation, we think of it as such magic that it has to have, we have no action that we take. We have no action that we take, or else it's not manifesting, and it's like both of these examples, they took action. She bought the lottery ticket. She didn't just wait, say, I want money, I want money to come. Or this lady, they had bought the stocks long ago. There had been an action that has taken. And I don't know, maybe other people don't think about it that way, but that's just something I had to kind of like reorganize in my own brain, was that, it doesn't have to be like this totally mystical thing in order to come to life. You know what I mean? It's more about, it's the yellow cars. It's like getting into this flow of receiving, however that shows up, letting go of the resistance of how that it's going to show up. I think that's just powerful. I think that I hear that in both of these stories, is that there was some letting go, there was some action, things like that.
I think there was imagination.
Yes.
Too. They used that, like Bob Proctor said. And I was thinking about an episode of Young Sheldon that we just watched, and he really wanted to go to Germany and he didn't have any money, and his family didn't have money. And so he told his sister, and she was like, hey, we're going to figure out a way to get you there. And he thought it was because she loved him, and she did, but she kind of wanted to get rid of him. So they were really motivated to go. And he was like, okay. So he just pulled up all the stuff that was important to him, and he's going to have this yard sale. Well, he couldn't sell any of his stuff because it was too precious to him. So that didn't work out. So he put that action in. And then he had these professors that heard that he wanted to go, and they brought him money. And then he had the church that wanted to get rid of him because he makes inappropriate comments, and they brought him money. But he did something. And he talked to people and he put it out there, and they knew it was going to happen. The sister was like, we were going to make this happen. And they did. And sometimes it's even just that action. And even if the first one's a failure, you did something.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. And you allow that to me, again, the hardest thing is allowing yourself that want and not being shameful of this is what I want. Because as soon as you start to put the parameters of well, I shouldn't want that, then we get into that future tripping or that imagination, destructive imagination. What will people think if I drive around in my Rolls Royce? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are those even a car? I think those are still going, right?
I think so, probably somewhere.
But it's and again, it's there's a fine line between really being authentic. Do I just want the Rolls Royce because it's the most expensive car? Or is it what, that I want that, that's authentic to me. You know what I mean? That's something I want. And that's something that we can, that's why, that's kind of the prompting, is it's that's listening to the inner voice, listening to the self, listening to whatever you want to call it, but just that it's personal, it's personal what we want to manifest. So yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit on? I just have one thing to end. So.
Oh, I don't think so. I guess I wanted to throw it out there that I am a student of
me,
this.
Me too.
I'm not good at it.
Me too.
Want to be. I feel really inspired to be better at this, because you read these examples, you hear these people, and you're like, it's not hard.
Right.
We make it hard because we want to. I think we have that philosophy in the back of our minds, like that first gentleman that was like, it doesn't work. You have to work. You have to
Yep.
bleed and sweat. I think that's come down in our DNA, if I'm being honest, that we have to do that. But I want to be different. I want it to be different.
Yeah, me too. I thought that same thing. I'm I want people to know, I'm just grateful that I, helped to create this podcast, because I learned more than anybody else. I get the aha moments as much as everybody else. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And it feels more like doable and exciting rather than like, I'm not doing it right. It feels possible. It feels possible. But I thought, manifesting is about wants, and our wants, our wants, needs, desires, they're all important and they're all valuable. And so being able to allow ourselves these wants is something that I think it's okay. Like, I give permission for you to have a want. If you need me to write it down, send me a note. Like, I will write you a permission slip. But yesterday I just happened to get a text from Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll. So he's amazing. His work is in the library. We're going to have him on again on the podcast probably in April. Cannot wait. He's just releasing another book. Thrilled. Everybody's loving it. It's getting tons of like rave reviews. So I'm really excited about this. But he sent me this. It just was funny that he sent me this thing. And I thought, I just wanted to read this little poem that he created at the end, because just to think about wants a little differently, because it's called What Do You Want? That's what. So, do you want miracles? Serve a neighbor. Do you want divine intervention? Intervene for the weak. Do you want to hear divine voices? Listen to the voiceless. Do you want to see visions? See the children. Do you want to feel divine love? Love yourself and others. Do you want to walk on water? Kindly walk on the earth. Do you want to be a divine voice? Speak kindness. Do you want to be divine? Be.
Wow, that brings tears to my eyes.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, first of all, I love that it allows or want, like, if you want this, let's do it. Like, here's a recipe, and it's not about saying you can't have what you want. It's just saying, let's work with the formula to get what you want. And I think it's true. My favorite, do you want to walk on water? Walk kindly on the earth, is my favorite line ever. I think that is one of the most powerful things we can do in manifesting, is to walk kindly on the earth, and all that entails it's just a magnet for good things and good people coming into our lives. And the more that we see and do kindness, the more that we feel like the world is a safe and amazing place. So yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Feel empowered every day with wholeness videos, meditations, downloads, classes, and more by joining the Wholeness Library at thewholenessnetwork.com.